Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And he used to say, "Hey, Greg Morgan," and he used to say, "Please call me Greg," and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, Smackdown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the pow.
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday once again, everyone. What's going on? And welcome to your Winged Eagle podcast for October 15th, 2022. Hope you guys are having a fantastic week. We were not here last week for the podcast because WWE has decided to run pay-per-views on Saturdays now. So we were here watching Extreme Rules last week, and we, of course, reviewed that. So we've kind of been out of the loop in terms of wrestling news and stuff, and there's not a shit ton to get into in terms of news today. Just a few tidbits, but a lot of results to get into, a lot of Bray Wyatt discussion, a lot of WWE discussion, and what their future is in terms of the rest of the year, WrestleMania, and a lot of big Bray Wyatt plans. And we're going to try to speculate as best we can to try to figure out what exactly is going to be going on with Bray Wyatt after what we saw last night on SmackDown in a very, very interesting promo, and a promo that I loved because it left us perplexed and it left us not knowing what the hell is going on, and I love that. It's one of the most attractive things about this whole entire Bray Wyatt situation, character, and gimmick. The most attractive thing about it, in my mind, is that you really don't know where it's going, and when you read the reports and you hear things online, it sounds like WWE really has long-term creative plans in place for this, which I think is the biggest weakness that WWE has had in the past. Whenever they have debuted or began some great gimmick, great faction, great angle, they don't really know how to pay it off. And a lot of times it, does not live up to a lot of the story. The payoff doesn't live up to how great the story was or how great the potential of the story could be. So when you hear things like WWE's got major plans for Bray Wyatt planned through WrestleMania, tentatively, of course, provided no injuries and other things tripping them up. But the fact that they have plans in place and they know where they're going several months out is a really positive and, I guess, optimistic news coming out of WWE, and it made me even more excited about what we're going to see with Bray Wyatt. So we're going to be talking about that a lot. We'll probably talk about SmackDown very early here in the podcast after we stop talking, or after we get through with some of the news tidbits, but it's going to be a lot of Bray Wyatt discussion, hanging out with you guys, answering some questions, talking wrestling news, and that type of stuff. But we are going to recap a lot of the results of this week. We're not going to get into everything, but I was not here on Wednesday, of course, to watch Dynamite with you guys either, because I've had a very busy week at work. And last Wednesday was a pretty good Dynamite. And the Tuesday Night Wars return this week. I will be here on Tuesday to watch Dynamite with you guys together as that goes head-to-head with NXT. But this past week's Dynamite was very good. We saw a brand new All-Atlantic champion crowned in Orange Cassidy, and Renee Paquette has turned up in All Elite Wrestling, and she is now All Elite. Not a big surprising signing there, but we'll be talking about that and what I thought was a really good Dynamite on Wednesday. Pretty decent Rampage last night, but I think we're going to spend most of our time talking about SmackDown in terms of the wrestling that was on last night. And we'll preview Raw for this week, a few matches on tap. Like I said, the Tuesday Dynamite has got a lot of matches on tap as well, including a really big title match with Jon Moxley and Hangman Page. And we will wrap things up with some previewing of the next couple of pay-per-views, maybe some Full Gear Survivor Series talk, anything that you guys want to discuss. We'll try to get into that today. And it's going to be basically like that. It's going to be a pretty casual podcast this afternoon. Should be no more than 2 hours. I know we're up here 30 minutes early today. I apologize for that, but I got to head off to work a little bit earlier than normal today, so that is why we're doing the time change. I know there's a ton of football on right now. We got baseball playoffs. The Padres have got a home game here in town tonight against the Dodgers, so there's a lot going on in the world of sports and entertainment and that type of stuff. So if you are here with us today, I appreciate it. As always, you guys know the drill. Please hit me with a thumbs up button there, and if you are not subscribed, please do. But this video could really use some likes. We're going to cruise over to the chat, say hello to everybody who's hanging out, knock out the super chats, and then we will get into the wrestling news and discussions for today. I'm also going to give some member shout-outs, some Patreon shout-outs, and let you guys know what's on tap coming up this week, including tomorrow's watch-along. So it should be good. Anyway, let me cruise up here to the chat and welcome all of the channel members. Good to see those Bret Hart, Good Mic Work icons next to your names. Tatanani, Red Raven Rucker, Nick Musser is in the house. So is Danny Allmark. K-Dog's kennel member for 3 months. Good to see you, my friend. Much love to you, good sir. Wife has had knee surgery on Thursday. Wife has knee surgery on Thursday, may be away for a couple of weeks as I take care of her, so I apologize ahead of time. No need to apologize, dude. You take care of your woman. If she's going under the knife on Thursday, you need to be there for her. I know you will. Kevin's a great guy. Take care of your family business. Don't worry about us. Make it back to us whenever you can, and best of luck to your wife. I have never had surgery before on anything. I've had some dental work done, but they didn't even knock me out for that. Like, I think wisdom teeth is the closest surgery I've ever had. So I have never gone under anesthesia. I've never had to come out of that. I don't know what it feels like, what it's like. I know lots of people who have had multiple umpteen surgeries and been through it a million times, but I've never been put under and never been operated on in any way. So even the most minor things like, knee surgery can still be very scary, and that's just a scary thing in general to go through. But best of luck to her and her recovery. Hopefully she rehabs that knee right up and is as good as new in no time. But yeah, take care of your business, Kevin, and appreciate you being here as always. We got Isaac in the house too, member for 3 months. Hey, Greg, won't be here for much since I'm celebrating my grandmother's 65th birthday. Just want to say hi to you and everyone. Hope you're doing well. Happy birthday to Grandma Isaac. Have a great 65th. Wow, you got a young grandma. That means must mean you are pretty young as well. That's awesome. Grandmas are the best. I was lucky in my life that I had basically 3 grandmothers because I had a stepfather, and they were all awesome, all in their own way, and all very similar as well, and grandmas are awesome. So happy 65th to Grandma Isaac. Spaz Phoenix in the house. Good to see you as well. Appreciate that $20 drop. Hey, Greg, a question for you. Since its inception, AEW has praised as the faction company, but I feel like they are holding back, and WWE is stepping up into that regard. Also, new NXT review up now, so go check out Spaz's YouTube channel, and he's got a lot of good NXT discussion there. If you want to learn or if you want to listen to NXT stuff, he's a good person to go to because we barely cover NXT at all here on this channel. But it does feel like WWE is upping their faction, and as we're going to talk about with Bray Wyatt, we still don't know really what he's going to do, if what we saw last night was the beginning of a split personality gimmick, or if it's the beginning of him creating a faction, or if it's both. Is he creating a faction with other people, or is he creating a faction with 5 other versions of himself? We don't know. That's probably the most fun about it. But you do see a lot of pockets of groups, and as a matter of fact, we were talking about this the other day, that WWE could technically, if they wanted to, introduce trios titles. Now, I think the last thing professional wrestling needs right now is more championship belts, but they certainly do have enough trios in the company, you know, with the Imperium and the New Day. Gallows and Anderson returned on Raw, forming with AJ Styles. Judgment Day is basically a three-man unit with Rhea there as well. So there are some groups in the company now, and WWE once was like that. Remember back in like 97, everything was a faction. It was DOA and Bariquas and Nation of Domination and DX and Heart Foundation. There was a million different factions. The Screwjob, the 25th anniversary of the Screwjob coming up in a couple of weeks. That pay-per-view was Gang Rules, remember? So yeah, it feels like WWE is becoming the company of factions again. Do they have more than AEW, or are they stepping up in that regard more than AEW? I think they're stepping up right now, and they're adding more factions, and they're letting the fans know that there's a lot of groups here. But in terms of which one's stronger, I don't know. I guess I'd have to write them down on paper and look at everything. But yeah, I don't really have a problem with factions in any company. So the fact that both companies are doing them right now, it's cool with me. I got no issue with that. George Morris, appreciate 5 from you. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? How are your cats? Super Mario Brothers 3. What did you think of the game? I have it on my NES online. Angela Lansbury died. Well, George, appreciate you being here as always, and appreciate the $5 from you. Cats are great as always, or, you know, as great as they can be, especially Bub Tito, Obesitito, like I call him. His big ass is underneath the desk right now, looking right at me and messing with my wires, but the boys are good. It's a good day in the podcastle. Super Mario Brothers 3. I loved the game. Loved Super Mario Brothers 3. Probably my favorite NES game of all time. Right here. I bought this on eBay. It's not my mom's game, but it actually had mom written in permanent marker on the game when I picked it up. But I love Super Mario Brothers 3. I can beat it. It's also on the NES Mini that I have, and I love NES. I don't play any modern video games. I have no idea what the fucking Xbox or PlayStation is, or NBA 2K25, WWE 2K, Eat Me. I don't know any of this stuff. But if you want to talk Mario Brothers or Double Dribble or Contra or some shit like that, I am your man. I love Mario 3. It's a tough game to beat, but I can beat it. I can beat all the Marios. I can beat Mario 2. I can beat Mario 2 being only the princess user in every single level and beat the game straight through. I'm the man. Angela Lansbury was a sad one. I never really watched Murder, She Wrote, but what I remember most about Murder, She Wrote is it was usually the lead-in to Monday Night Raw back in the 90s. And that theme song became very synonymous with pro wrestling and the USA Network, especially during that time. And it was, acted as Raw's lead-in prior to the Walker, Texas Ranger days, and who knows what led into Raw, in the last 20 years or so. But back in the 90s, it was all about Murder, She Wrote. I know my grandma watched it, but I never really did watch much of Murder, She Wrote. But Angela Lansbury was an angel, and it's a shame she passed away. I believe she was 96. So to be perfectly honest, when I read of her death, I didn't even know she was still alive. So that's a tough loss. She was the best. So rest in peace to Angela Lansbury. Wrestling fans, I think, are always going to have a link to her because of how many times we saw her face prior to Monday Night Raw. How Wheezy's in the house, so is Dreadhead Dre, who joined the family. Appreciate you becoming a member. Memberships have been doing really well, even though subscribers and the likes have not been doing well. Memberships have been pretty good on the channel. I appreciate everybody joining up. Welcome to the family, Dreadhead Dre, excuse me. I'll get that right at some point. And thanks for being here, and I appreciate you joining. We've got Ronnie in the house as well. Good to see you, my friend. Stephen Harris, William Pender, Jay Zolo. We've got Maka International. We got Tatanani in the house. Right on. So nice little Doug Unfunny. I didn't get you earlier as well. The Iron Minotaur, Hassan Terrell, Big J, Nick Musser. Did I get you? I think I did. And that should do it, at least for right now. Destiny, Adam, chiming in here at the end. Good to see you guys as well. We need to get to stepping here on some wrestling news, but before we do that, let me just cruise in here and do some very, very brief shout-outs, and then I'm going to let you guys know what's going on for the weekend. Where are my nice little members there? You guys all are. I want to shout out all the channel members. Let's just do them all in one big block today so we can get moving. Dreadhead Dre, brand new member, just joined a couple of minutes ago. Sean, 2018, also a relatively new member. Appreciate you joining the other day. Jordan Karg as well, longtime listener. Michael Hughes, Financial Truth Academy. Devlin Husband is now here, transferring over from the Patreon page. Chaz Medeiros, Mike Tong, Ian Dunn, Longboard, Kevin, Sam Piboon, Jeff McMahon, Deshaun Robinson, Mikey Too Cool, Luke McAllister, Tar Brehan, Celius Ward, William, Queasy, Bo Kavlovic, Al Ramos Pro, Zach H., Chris Miner, Mike Witt, Danny Allmark, Jimmy Anderson, C. Mac, Mab, Joshua Aparicio, How Wheezy, Spaz Phoenix, Ronnie, Nicole Lensing, Marcus the Entertainer, Divine Ricks, Nikita Abalakin, Zane G., Chris Barrera, Michael Kumo, John J.E. Dennett, Tatanani, Nick Musser, K-Dogs, Kennel, Max Pokebra 27, Spectra, Red Raven Rucker, Reese Jones, Victor Cologne, Isaac, George Morris, Stephen Taylor, Population 420, and the very first member to ever join, JJ Leg. As always, guys, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for the memberships. Thank you for the support. Really could not do this without you. I also want to give a quick shout out to the following names: Zach Palgett, Joseph Hudson, Chris Broski, Divine Ricks, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y., John Redifer, Claudio Clavadetster, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Cuomo, Naveed, and Blake Moran. You guys also all support on the Patreon page. I appreciate that. Some of you support on both, and this channel literally could not do it without the support of its listeners. Thank you again so much for everything, y'all. Speaking of having fun together, we're going to have some fun tomorrow. Watch Along is set for tomorrow. I went ahead and decided this one on my own because it's Halloween season, and we were going to do some Halloween Havocs, and you guys have already thrown out some suggestions to me last time we did a watch along, and I remember one of those suggestions was Halloween Havoc 1996. That was the night that Roddy Piper debuted for WCW at the end of the show. I thought that would be a perfect one to watch for tomorrow. The link is already up on my channel. It's also in the description below if you just want to click that, save it for tomorrow, give it a like. We'll be up here at normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Excuse me. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 here on the Pacific Coast. And if there's any football game on tomorrow and baseball, which I know there will be, we'll have that on the TV. We'll monitor scores. We'll hang out. We'll shoot the shit. We'll drink some cold ones. Should be a good time here on the channel tomorrow night for WCW Halloween Havoc 1996. I believe the main event in that was Hogan and Savage. And I remember that time, too. I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot tomorrow night. But when Piper was leaving and going to WCW, it was already leaked. So prior to Halloween Havoc, you knew Piper was coming in because he was previously the commissioner in WWE, actually had a match at WrestleMania 12 that year against Goldust, that backlot brawl thing, and then was kind of gone from TV. And I remember at that time being suspicious, being like, where's Piper? And they got him too. Ted Turner and Bischoff got their hooks into Piper, and Piper left Vince to go down to basically return, to the NWA again and work with Flair and shit. Just so crazy to see him going back there after all those years. But Piper went, and as a matter of fact, Mr. Perfect would be very close behind him. I think in the next couple of months. I think it would take until the following summer for him to get there, but he left around the same time that Piper joined at WCW. And I remember around that time, as a WWE fan carrying the flag, I much preferred them in the war. I remember being like, oh shit, WCW's doing pretty good here. You know, now they've got Piper, Mr. Perfect is left. We're sitting here with New Razor and Diesel looking like idiots. I was worried for WWE around that time. They didn't start kind of turning the corner until maybe early 97 there when Austin started catching a little bit more steam. They went to a 2-hour Raw, moved away from the taped format, added the Titantron, the stage, and got the Hart Foundation USA stuff cooking. Then things started to get rolling a little bit, but it was still desperate times back then in 1996 for WWE, the complete opposite of what was going on in WCW. So it should be a fun watch along tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to that. I will not be here for a Raw review on Monday. I don't think there's any reason to be up here for one, even though Brock is scheduled to be on the show. So we won't do a Raw review on Monday unless something crazy happens. We'll come up here and bust out a mic drop on it. But on Tuesday, we will be here live to watch AEW Dynamite together as they go head-to-head with NXT, and it's a pretty loaded Dynamite as we have 2 World Championship matches on the show. I think 3. I think it's Mox Hangman. I've got it written down. We'll talk about it later. But Mox Hangman, Jericho Dalton Castle, and Tony Storm and Hikaru Shida, I believe. And I think there's even some other matches announced for the show as well. Tuesday will be fun here on the channel. Mark your calendars. Link will be up probably tonight or tomorrow or something like that. I should have already had that done, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So anywho, that is what's on schedule and on tap for the channel this weekend, and you're going to be getting me 3 out of the next 4 days with the exception of Monday. William Pender, go Dodgers, come on now. Man, I actually think the Padres have a chance to win this series. I thought the Padres beat the Mets just to come get their asses kicked by the Dodgers, but they took one in LA and they won last night, and they're back home again here tonight. Game starts in just a little while. The cool thing about me is that even though I've lived in San Diego now for 12 years, my family's been here for 25. And I'm originally from Michigan. I'm so used to my team sucking. As long as they're good, just the fact that the city of San Diego is hosting a postseason game of any kind, to me is pretty cool. And I have not lived in the same city as a World Series team since 1984 when I lived in Detroit. And they won the World Series, ironically beating the Padres. So I'm going for the Padres. But you know what, William? You guys won 22, 23 more games than we did. You're supposed to win this series. So if you lose to us, what does that say about you? But anyway, best of luck, William. If you win, I'll be the first one to congratulate you. I don't get too hung up that crazy on sports, and I certainly don't jump off a bridge if my team loses. But may the best team win. Tonight is going to be a big one, though. We win tonight. Y'all are on the ropes, William. Y'all are on the ropes. Matos, I would love to root for an NFL team. I was born in Michigan. I was born in Detroit, virtually. I was born in Pontiac, very close to Detroit. So I'm always loyal to all of the Detroit teams. I've always remained loyal to them. I've now since, added some of that loyalty to San Diego since I've been here for so long, and I am a Californian now. I did live in North Carolina as well. Really never gave a shit about any of their teams. I've always remained loyal to the city of my birth. So that's the Lions. Sucks to be me. Sucks to be me. But anyway, we're not here to talk about shitty Lions. We're here to talk about wrestling. Let's start with some wrestling news. Just some random stuff. Why don't we start with Renee Paquette? Renee Paquette is all elite. I loved the news of this signing. There were some rumors a couple of days prior. I think Fightful Select actually broke this story that people in WWE were of the belief that Renee Paquette was going to be signing with AEW. Now, this is not a shock because she's been waiting out that long, no compete for I don't know how long now. That's finally over. She left WWE in 2020. And Moxley, her husband, just re-upped with the company for 5 years, signed a 5-year extension. He's going nowhere. AEW is his home. Renee is his wife. They have a kid together. It would make no sense whatsoever for Renee Young to go back to WWE. So she has signed with AEW, and they debuted her in the Perfect City. That's her town. And I loved it. I loved to see her on Dynamite come out there, welcome us to the show, bring out Christian. She looked great. So glad to see her back. So happy to see her back. She is one of the very few names, when you think about people in the wrestling business like currently that are just universally beloved by every asshole out there because fans are dicks and they're always fighting with each other and they're tribal and all this stuff. There's very few people that just seem to have that universal respect from everybody. I truly believe Renee Young is on that list. I'm sorry, Renee Paquette is on that list. She's fantastic. She adds like a Brock level legitimacy to their backstage crew, which I think is already very solid. They got great interviewers and they got great people there. It's not that they necessarily need the help, but Renee is very good at her job. Renee was sought after. Remember hearing the story stories of ESPN having interest in Renee. And I remember at the time when she was in WWE thinking that maybe she was just using WWE as a stepping stone to become the next Linda Cohn or Rachel Nichols or somebody like that in ESPN. I'm happy that she is married to a wrestler, and that hopefully that means she will be married to the wrestling business, because I don't want to lose her to sports. I don't want to lose her to ESPN or anywhere else. I would like her to stay in wrestling. She's great there, and it's awesome to see her in AEW, and it's just happy to see her face again in a wrestling setting. AEW doesn't really do the, like the kickoff shows like WWE does with the panel off to the ring. I don't know if they're going to start doing those now that Renee is there. Hopefully she will not be taking backstage duties away from too many people. I think if anything, maybe she'll assume some of the roles that Shivani has, although, because he already has a job announcing, but I kind of like seeing Shivani do the interviews. It's a connection to my past that I love. So even though I'm happy Renee is there, I don't want her to necessarily replace Tony in those environments. I just hope that she's there to add to it, because I really do like that Shivani conducts in-ring interviews and on-stage interviews, kind of like how Mean Gene used to do and in WCW. And if Renee is going to be a part of that, that's fine, but I don't want to see Tony's responsibilities in that completely go away either. So hopefully there's a nice balance there, and they can kind of figure out the Renee stuff as they go. If you notice now, basically the entire crew of the WWE Backstage show that was on FS1 a while back is in AEW now. Wasn't it Renee and Saraya and CM Punk and Samoa Joe? They're all there. I think the only exception to this is maybe Booker T, who made some appearances on the show. That's pretty crazy, if you ask me. I think that's pretty funny. But good to see Renee Paquette in All Elite Wrestling. She did speak about this on her podcast, The Sessions, where she did talk a little bit about it. And I read some of the transcripts, but basically she was crediting Moxley with this whole thing coming together when she was talking about her desire to get back in wrestling, talked about how she was tired of just sitting at home in her sweatpants all the time. She missed wrestling. She misses the live TV aspect. She misses the outfits, getting ready, and just that environment of being in a live TV production environment. She really, really missed it, wanted to get back to it. And since Mox is right there and he's the perfect go-between between her and Tony Khan, it was basically the two of them talking as a married couple about what she wants to do and what's best for her. And when it was decided that maybe she wants to get back into wrestling, Tony Khan, was ready to bring her in almost immediately. So good to see her there. A huge pickup for them. That's the one thing I laugh at when people say, oh, all they do is sign ex-WWE guys or whatever. How are you going to have somebody like Renee Paquette sitting there available and not take them? Just so you don't want to be, somebody who signs ex-WWE guys? I mean, if you're a wrestler or if you're a wrestling personality and you're not working for one company, you're probably going to work for the other. If you're a basketball player and you get released by one team, you're probably just going to go play for another team. It's just kind of the way it is. This is your profession. The reason ex-WWE guys go to AEW is because they're pro wrestlers, and AEW is a pro wrestling company. They have to go somewhere, and if you're good enough, you're a good piece of talent that can be used, or you were maybe released when you shouldn't have been, when WWE was slashing all that talent, you would be a fool to not pick some of this stuff up. So, WWE's doing the same thing. WWE's re-signing their own ex-WWE guys, if you notice. As a matter of fact, what Twitter account was it? Was it the WWE on Fox, or one of their Twitter accounts actually posted a picture of Triple H saying, who will Triple H bring back next, insinuating that there's already somebody set to come back. So if you think about all of the release people from the last couple of years who have not been signed by AEW, who does that really leave out there that could make a big enough impact? I would like to see Bronson Reed come back. I thought he was fantastic. I could not believe that they let him go. A guy that big and as good as he is, I think give me a Bronson Reed and fucking Otis feud. That would be fun, right? So hopefully Reed is one of them. Or Jonah. I guess he'd come back in as Bronson Reed if he came back. So I think he would be one that would be on my list. But if you guys have any better suggestions, let me know, who you think it could be. Adam Cole, too. I think you are referencing people that are just universally beloved and respected. Adam Cole is the best. He's just an awesome dude. I hope that he can recover from his injuries, get back in the ring full time, because he's another guy that I think should be right at the top of title contention in AEW. But you know what? Right now, they got a pretty damn strong champion there in Mr. Paquette, I must say, because I thought about this last night, and tell me if you agree. I was thinking about Moxley and Roman, and I was like, you know what? These are two of the strongest world champions we've had at the same time since WCW. Now, hear me out. I'm talking about strongest world champions when there's only one champion in each company. Do you know how long it's been since we've had one world champion in each major North American company? Basically just two. You'd have to go back to WCW. I think Moxley and Roman are the strongest two world champions since Austin and Goldberg. Don't shit your pants. I'm not saying they're stronger than those two. I'm saying they're the strongest since Austin and Goldberg. Because think about it. All of these years, over the last 20 years, the two world champions have always just been in WWE. So that doesn't count. And when TNA was around, that gave us 3 world champions because WWE had 2 and TNA had 1. When was the last time there was 2 major North American companies with 1 champion each? You'd have to go back to 2001 to find that. Nearly 20 years, because WWE has had 2 champions in their own company. And I just don't consider, like, they've had some two good world champions at one time before, don't get me wrong, but I don't consider that the same because it's still the same company. I'm thinking about 2 completely separate world champions in 2 separate companies. It's the first time we've only had 2 because Roman is holding 2 championships right now. Now, if they ununify those belts and we go back to the 2 world champion system in WWE, then this is all done. But you really have to go back 20 years to find a time where there was only 1 world champion in each company. Because WWE introduced that world heavyweight title in 2002, right? So it was there, pretty much right from the end of WCW, and WWE has ran 2 world champions the whole time. Now, I guess you'd have to go back. I guess you could go back to 2014, right? Cena and Orton unified them. Orton unified the belts or whatever the fuck, and then Daniel Bryan won him at WrestleMania 30 and then gave it up. Cena won the Money in the Bank. Brock won the 2 belts. And I guess, okay, so I guess we have been there because there was 1 world champion for a couple of years there for what, 2? Maybe 2. How long did we go with 1 world champion in WWE? I'd say what, 2.5 years. Okay, so I might be wrong. In those years between 2014 and when the Universal title was created in 2016, maybe there was a strong champion in TNA, but not as strong as Mox. I don't think. Even if it was AJ or something, TNA at that time was not putting up the numbers. 2014, 2015, TNA was not doing the business AEW is doing. So I personally believe that Mox and Roman Reigns are the 2 strongest separate world champions that we have seen in the business. Both going strong at the same time. Roman and Mox, I think, are both as popular and as strong as they've ever been in their entire careers. That's why I compare them to Austin and Goldberg, because they were champs at the same time in 98 and both really kind of hitting their stride at the same time. Moxley is doing the best work of his career, and I think everybody will agree that Roman is also doing the best work of his career. He's the most over he's ever been. He's treated like a megastar. He's treated like a Brock Lesnar or The Rock level star, or at least that's what they're trying to do with him, and I think it's working. So when I think about those 2 together, I really think that this is a great time to be a wrestling fan, because both, even though I hate that Jon Moxley lost to CM Punk, they should have never deviated away from Moxley, if you ask me. Even though I hate that they did that, I still think that Mox is an incredibly credible champion, and he is the best guy right now to hold that title in AEW. So when you look at it like that, when you got 2 world champions, that are heading up 2 pretty solid rosters in both companies, that's not a bad thing. If you're a wrestling fan, that's a good thing. So we'll see if Roman Reigns winds up, ununifying these things or not. But at least for right now, both companies have got strong people at the top. Speaking of AEW, why don't we talk briefly about this Ariel Helwani stuff? Now, a week back, whenever it was, he interviewed Tony Khan. I watched most of the interview and didn't really see any problem with it, other than maybe Ariel wasn't getting some of the answers he was hoping he would get from Tony Khan regarding a lot of the brawl out stuff, the CM Punk stuff, the Elite stuff. And Tony Khan made it very clear that he could not talk about that stuff for legal reasons. But basically the way the interview went, Ariel, I guess, felt a little bit frustrated that he just wasn't able to get the material or the questions out of that answered that he wanted, and then was on his show discussing this, and went on to basically kind of bash the AEW fans. First of all, he said, I've never been this frustrated with an interview in my life regarding Tony Khan. And then he goes on to say, like, in these AEW freakazoids, these fans, they went so crazy and they went so berserk. So it sounds like whatever he said or whatever riled them up, they came and attacked him. And I'm sure the freakazoid comment is going to make things much better for him. So he calls them all freakazoids, which I kind of thought was funny. Didn't really bother me at all. But in terms of like his frustrations, like, yeah, I kind of get that you're going to, if you interview a bunch of people, you're going to have a frustrating one from time to time. But I don't know why you would be frustrated with somebody telling you, hey, I can't talk about these things. Just can't. So I know there was some other frustrations and it wasn't just that stuff, but I didn't really see why he was really that mad about it. I mean, he also interviewed Triple H a couple of weeks before that. I mean, if he wanted to ask Triple H some intense questions, he could. He asked him some stuff about Vince McMahon and all of that and what Triple H is going to do. I did think Ariel had some interesting questions for Triple H, but he could have easily asked him some tougher questions too. As much as I love Triple H and as much as I am elated that this man is heading up a creative regime in WWE, and we have seen almost instantly the results of that. Fans are happier. Talent is happier. The networks are happier. So from that standpoint, I am pleased as punch that Triple H is in charge of WWE now. Backstage, and Stephanie is the CEO, and Vince is gone. Just the Vince influence is gone. It is immediately, almost overnight, made that product watchable again, and it's only going to get better. So I say all of that, so I say this with all the love in the world for Triple H being in charge of WWE, but you cannot sit here for 1 minute and convince me that Triple H had no idea what Vince McMahon was up to that whole time. You think Triple H and Stephanie didn't know about these affairs? That they didn't know about these hush money payments? That they probably participated in covering these things up? These are very real questions. And I am convinced that Stephanie and Triple H both knew about this and both did what they could to keep it as quiet as possible. Ariel Helwani never asked him anything about that. How come Ariel didn't say, Triple H, did you know that Vince McMahon paid that woman in 2005 and 2007? Do you remember when this happened? Like, what are your memories of that? He would have forced Triple H to lie. I mean, I watched most of that interview. I don't recall him asking Triple H any of this stuff. So all I'm saying is if Ariel Helwani, wanted to ask really, really hard questions, he could have asked some to Triple H as well. He didn't like the responses he got from Tony Khan. I understand that. And I understand the freakazoid comment, because I do know that fans, regardless of what side you're on, are fucking nuts when they get a bug up their ass. So if they come attacking Ariel Helwani, his response was to call them freakazoids. That's not something that I find offensive as a wrestling fan at all. I know that AEW fans and WWE fans can be nuts. If you're an AEW fan and somebody says something that you don't like and you're a crazy tribal fucking lunatic, then you're going to go crazy and attack them and spew all your hate and anger and all that stuff when really you shouldn't even be that mad at all. And then on the other side of that coin, it's just as bad. It's just as bad as of a cult over there, because you have people that will just sit there and bullshit themselves about what the other company does. AEW fans will pretend that the Bray Wyatt stuff is uninteresting and stupid. I'm talking about the tribal AEW fans. I'm like, no, it's not. It's fucking awesome. WWE tribalists, on the very same day that AEW sells out a pay-per-view in 20 minutes, they call them a mud show. I'm like, well, that's just fucking stupid right there. So I think that fans just get way too caught up in this tribal stuff. Ariel Helwani caught the AEW end of it this week, caught it right in the face. And yeah, they are freakazoids, but don't sit here for a second and pretend that the bullshit on the other side isn't as bad. It is. There is not one side that's crazier than the other, and you can tailor your Twitter timeline to get rid of these people if you want. The one thing that I just look for in tweets and opinions is just to read between the lines. If somebody wants to give me an AEW opinion, but in that opinion is some little jab about Daddy Khan's money or Tony Khan's a mark or anything like that, you have just exposed yourself to be completely biased, and I'm not going to take a word of your opinion seriously. So it's little things like that I just look for. You can always tell the people that already have a thorny, jagged stick up their ass about any company, and it's very easy to tell that. So that's basically the way I look at all this stuff. And when I field opinions or whatever, I'm not even going to read one. If I see Daddy Khan or Tony Con It's just deleted and you're blocked. I'm not even going to fucking watch that, listen to that for a second because it's stupid and it's completely driven by bullshit. And Ariel, I did not even get mad. A lot of fans were pissed at him. Oh, he didn't really handle that well. I just think maybe he could have worded it a little bit differently, how he was talking about his frustrations. And then when he was talking about the fans, oh my God, the Freakazoids, maybe he could have worded that a little bit better. But in terms of what was discussed in the Tony Khan interview, I didn't see anything that bad about it, but I wasn't the one conducting the interview. I wasn't the one, I don't know what questions he was looking to get answered or what he wanted to cover. But Tony Khan, if you've ever heard him speak, he never shuts the fuck up. He'll just talk about anything. He'll talk for hours. So it feels like he could have gotten whatever info he wanted out of Tony Khan, provided Tony Khan was legally able to speak about these issues to begin with. So at the end of the day, Ariel ruffled a few feathers in the wrestling community. I never found it anything more than mildly humorous, and I wasn't offended by anything Ariel Helwani said. I wasn't offended by the Freakazoid comment. I wasn't offended that he was frustrated. Don't really give a shit at all, but he did make some news this week, so I thought we would talk about it. Some more news tidbits here. Gabe Sapolsky, apparently, according to the Observer, who has been recently rehired by WWE, he's going to be in charge of the Raw and SmackDown extras that we see. So whenever two jabronis, as Michael Cole called them last night, get beat up, as two of them did, against Braun Strowman, it looks like Gabe is the one to be making these phone calls. Gabe follows me on Twitter. Gabe, want to hook me up? I'd rather not be in the ring being beaten up by Omos, but if you just want to have me back there as an extra with a little headset on, running around backstage, I'll do that. I'll look really good doing it, too. I'm kidding. Save that for the young fellas. They need it. Also, we've got a little bit of news on WWE and Paige. Now, of course, Saraya recently debuted in AEW, and a lot of fans were speculating if she's going to get in the ring because she got physical in her second week there, and then the reports were coming out that she has been cleared. AEW's Dr. Michael Sampson, who has also been in WWE, I believe he's the guy who saved Jerry Lawler's life, right? He has cleared her to wrestle, and she was also a guest on Talk is Jericho, on the most recent edition of Talk is Jericho, where she did talk a little bit about her decision to come to AEW and how she wrapped up things with WWE. And apparently, Triple H was very shocked by Paige's contract not being renewed. It was Johnny Ace and Vince McMahon that apparently made the call to not renew her, even though she had gone independently and gotten clearance from 3 different doctors to return to the ring. Apparently, WWE would not sign off on any x-rays, and they had no desire at all to get her back into the fold in the ring physically. And she had to kind of sit around for a couple of years not being used. And she spoke about that frustration. And I think she said a lot of good things about WWE, and she loved her time there and talked about a few other gnarly incidents in her life. But I think the one thing that really upset her the most, according to her, was how certain things were handled that could have been handled better. And of course, the Twitch stuff. And I was really on Paige's side about the Twitch stuff. The Twitch stuff really pissed me off as it was, because you had great people like, Adam Cole and like Saraya who do this, who love to do it. It's part of their livelihood. It's part of their lives. I mean, hell, it keeps them out of trouble, especially Saraya. Adam Cole probably doesn't have to worry about that. But, Saraya, if she can find herself distracted, that'll keep her away from the crazy life, I think that's a good thing. And you should never threaten to take that away. And she spoke about talking to one of Vince McMahon's, assistants or whatever, who, told her, hey, you gotta give us a cut of that. And she said that if she was able to speak to Vince specifically or personally about it, she feels he would have been much more chill, much more, maybe willing to work with her. But this guy was an asshole, and it just rubbed her the wrong way. And it was very frustrating to her that was threatened. And she said there is no way she has given that up. And I love that she stood her ground. I love that Adam Cole stood their ground. That's one of the most infuriating stories in recent history in my mind coming out of WWE, is how just the cheapness of them, the pettiness, this multi-billion-dollar global conglomerate that is just, sucking in money by the tons, is going to go out and nickel and dime their talent. This is a way for them to make some extra money, as long as they're not using the WWE's names and likeness and intellectual properties on their stream. I really don't see what the big deal is. And I'm happy that once Vince left, that stuff has kind of been rectified now, and it's really a non-issue. But Paige mentioned that it was a really big issue for her at the time, and that was a really big factor into how she felt about WWE and how much it turned her off to them. Now, I'm kind of indifferent about Saraya or Paige because I also believe that there was a time in Paige's life, you guys remember, when she was going through all that shit and she was acting crazy. She even talked about this on Talk is Jericho. She said that she thought she was going to die before the movie came out, before Fighting with My Family came out, because of how crazy she was, the alcohol, the drugs, the relationship. I think she was with Alberto Del Rio at that time. And she talked about how crazy she was. And she was crazy. I used to get so mad. I used to give Paige such a hard time because every story we read about her was something negative. Every story we read about her was her making a fool of herself, was her being a drug-addicted, smashed, crazy, batshit insane mess in a terrible, toxic, abusive relationship. Everything she did publicly was a complete embarrassment. She got suspended a couple of times. I believe she should have been fired. I think if she was anybody else, she would have been. Because of the movie, I think it protected her a little bit. And she even said that one of the WWE reps had to give her a call. I think it was Mark Carrano, and basically had to say, like, yo, get your shit together, because a lot of stuff is going to be coming your way, a lot of press, for this movie and whatnot. And that was... And I remember thinking at the time, being in WWE's situation and being like, if I was them, I'd be pissed. We're making a movie about this girl, and all she has to do is not be a batshit insane train wreck, and she can't do it. I'd fire your ass in a second, but you can't fire somebody so they can go work in another wrestling promotion, and then that promotion gets all the love from the movie. I mean, it's a WWE, character, the Rock's involvement. They even filmed a lot of the scenes on a Monday Night Raw. They basically, Paige for a while there had WWE by the balls. She had them in a situation where she could misbehave and do whatever she wanted. She was kind of unfireable at that time. So as much as I agree with Saraya's frustration, and as much as I think WWE are just putrid assholes for what they tried to do with that Twitch stuff, I also believe they gave Paige a lot of slack. And had it not been for that movie, I would have seen no reason to keep Paige around. Paige wasn't Stone Cold Steve Austin or a Rock or somebody of that level in the women's division. Yes, she was a big part of the women's division becoming what it is today. She began that whole trend, but I've always believed if Paige didn't begin it, somebody else would have. Paige wasn't the reason things changed. She just happened to be around when that Give Divas a Chance thing started. She was one of the early NXT recruits that was showing some promise. There was an actual wrestler. Yes, she was pretty and gorgeous and hot, but she could work as well, and that's what she's been training to do. She wasn't training to do bikini pillow fights. She was training to wrestle. So when she came in and made some waves in NXT very quickly and then burst onto the scene on the main roster and became champion right around the same time that they're trying to give Divas a chance, she was a big part of that. But I believe if it wasn't Paige, it just would have been Natalya or Charlotte or somebody else that would have gotten that rolling maybe just a little bit later. So I believe that she will always be looked at back at as one of the women that helped change the perception of women's wrestling for sure. But I also don't believe that she was somebody that is too valuable to fire. She was good in the ring, had a great look. Everything about her was great, but your women's division would survive without her. You know what I mean? She'd be a great asset to any women's division, but she wouldn't single-handedly destroy a women's division by leaving. That's why I thought that had it not been for that movie, she would have been fired out on her ass, if you ask me. But she's since turned things around. I still am very nervous. When somebody's crazy to that level, it always makes me nervous that that person just lives inside of you. And if the right set of circumstances come along again, Paige could get crazy again. So whenever you're that level of crazy, I don't believe really, truly that you just turn into a normal human after that. I believe you always have that in you. So I'm always going to be worried that this monster can come back out. But she seems to be in a really good place. She seems to be happy, and she seems to be in a much better place than she was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and seems to have really grown. And hopefully her time in AEW can be successful, because if she's there to change things, if she's there to make changes in the AEW women's division, hasn't worked so far, because on Dynamite, I believe they gave the women, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, something like that. One women's match, one segment, tag team match on the whole show. So far, Saraya ain't changed shit in AEW, but we will see how she does. We just wish her the best, regardless of what happens. And I thought the story of Triple H really wanting to utilize her was pretty interesting, because I guess maybe, and I'm not saying this as a knock on Paige or Saraya, I do like her a lot. I just don't know if she brings the value that maybe Triple H or Tony Khan thinks she does. Like I said, she's a great asset or whatever, but she's also somebody that's got a lot of injury issues. You don't know what her future is going to be and that type of thing. And I don't even know if it would be worth bringing her in and getting her involved in something if I'm Triple H. So the fact that he had genuine interest in her, making her a GM again or being a manager or whatever he wanted, apparently he had wanted to use her in that way and was shocked that they chose to let her walk out the door. But anyway, best of luck to Saraya as she continues her AEW run. Should be fun to see how all that plays out. Before we get into Bray Wyatt and all the SmackDown stuff, I want to mention briefly about this past week's Monday Night Raw. We were up here live on Monday to do a Raw review. That's the last time I've been up for a live stream, was on Monday. I planned to come up here earlier in the week with a mic drop. I never got around to it, so I apologize for this being my first video since Monday. But on Monday, we saw the return not only of Brock Lesnar coming out and attacking Bobby Lashley, costing him the match and losing to Seth Rollins, losing his United States title to Seth Rollins. We also saw the return of the Good Brothers, or Gallows and Anderson. I guess they're not going to be Good Brothers in WWE, reforming the club with AJ basically confronting Judgment Day on Monday Night Raw. So the return of Brock and the return of Gallows and Anderson was very cool. This week I also should mention on Raw, pretty solid rating. They were head-to-head with Monday Night Football, pulled in 1.82 million with a 0.55 in the share. Those are excellent numbers for a Monday Night Football season Raw. They really are. This week on Raw looks pretty good. We've got Dexter Lumis taking on The Miz. If Lumis wins, he gets a WWE contract. If The Miz wins, the man that doesn't even work there is fired. So I don't know how that stip is going to work, because Lumis has been entering Monday Night Raw and getting to Miz despite not having a contract there. So to have a stipulation, if The Miz wins, Lumis has to go away, says who? Who says Lumis has to go away? Miz could easily just pick up another present off another table, and Lumis's head could be sticking up through the hole. Should mean nothing if Miz wins this, which is why, Miz is going to lose. Lumis will win. He will get his contract, and he will continue to torment The Miz, because any other way doesn't make sense. Actually, maybe it will. Maybe they will throw a swerve at us. That's what I would do. Maybe it would be WWE kind of poking holes in their own logic here. If I'm Triple H, I would have a swerve. Everybody assumes Lumis is going to win, get his contract. I'd have The Miz win. And The Miz is like, yeah, you're out of here, Lumis. And then Lumis can just basically say what I am saying. Well, how can I be fired if I don't work here? How can you send me away? I'm already not allowed in the building. Security does not allow me in. They don't want me here. But I'm here every week. I'm under tables. I'm under the ring. I'm in your dressing room. I'm hiding in the toilet. I'm somewhere, and I'm going to get to you or your wife or your kids, regardless if I have a job here or not. So part of me thinks it might be fun if on Monday, Miz wins and then gets on the mic and gloats that Lumis is gone, and then next week, Lumis is right back to stalking him again. So we will see how that plays out on Monday, but my gut feeling tells me Lumis will pick up that win and get him a WWE contract. We're going to have Gallows and Anderson taking on Otis and Gable, so they'll be back in the ring for the first time in a long time in WWE, taking on the Gabester and Otis. And we also have the return of Elias. So Elias, I'm sure, will be in the ring to do a concert. Somebody will interrupt him, and he'll be off and running for his next feud. I think maybe it could be Kevin Owens coming out to talk to Elias and continue that, or maybe Owens' statement of what he did to Ezekiel was enough to end that issue. But Elias, I believe, did do a promo saying he was going to come get revenge or whatever. So I think maybe Elias is now going to be working with Kevin Owens, and that whole thing is going to return. We'll see how that goes. Before we get into SmackDown and start talking about Bray Wyatt, let me just cruise over here in the chat and make sure everything is good. Good to see Ben Espinoza in the house as well. And good point, Dreadhead Dre. The fact that a New Japan champion under WWE contract makes me wonder if they're trying to start a working relationship. They might be. Triple H has already wanted to do this before, remember? They were trying to create a monopoly not long ago before the pandemic, reaching out, and, but they basically just destroyed the UK indie scene by forming NXT UK. They purchased Evolve. They were doing little bits with other companies here and there. Triple H definitely seems way more open to the stuff than Vince McMahon, and this is something Tony Khan has been doing a lot of. So now you see a current New Japan title holder in the WWE. New Japan even retweeted WWE on Monday night. Also, I don't know if you saw, Riddle posted some pictures training with Minoru Suzuki. So this is really interesting because now you can maybe start a bidding war. This might be Triple H is cutthroat too. We might all love Triple H, but let's not pretend he's not petty as fuck. And if he's got an idea in his head, and he'll do anything he can to stunt the growth of somebody else as well. So if he thinks that he can have a better relationship with some of these companies, or if he reaches out, or like, yeah, New Japan's working with AEW because they're the only ones available to work with right now. If we reached out to New Japan and say, hey, we'd be willing to do some stuff, maybe they could get a fucking Tanahashi in there or something like that. So I think that's cool because it's going to make things very interesting. And I've always been a fan of working relationships. I've always been a fan of other companies' champions being, making appearances in different promotions. I think that's cool, especially today when there's the internet and everything's so easily accessible and it's so easy to find out who these guys are. And many fans might know who these guys are anyway. I think that's really awesome. The only problem is, up until this point, the only company that's really been doing working relationships, at least in the last couple of years, is AEW. So naturally, the tribal AEW haters, the ones that are just going to hate everything they do no matter what, because it doesn't matter what they do. It matters that they hate them. So you've seen a lot of criticisms. Every time a New Japan person comes out on AEW, you got the who the hell is this guy crowd. Every time. Consistent as gravity. Who the hell is this guy? Fans are going to know who they are. I don't understand why Tony Khan is bringing this guy out to TV. Nobody knows. It's only the hardcores. He's just catering to his little niche and his group. I bet you if Triple H started making moves like this, and Triple H was the one to bring Takeshita to SmackDown, I bet you suddenly it wouldn't seem so dumb anymore. And that's why I really hope that Triple H does make some of these moves to show these fans that just make up these bullshit reasons why they don't like one company. Then when the other one does it, all of a sudden it won't be a big deal anymore. And then that can show him, see, there is a reason to do this. It is good to bring wrestlers in from other promotions. It introduces them to the fans. It gets them, and plus it crosses over with their fan base, because even though the fans say things like, oh, who's this guy? Well, there's a lot of people who do know who that guy is. Many of us, I don't know about you guys in the chat, but I know how to use Google. It's not hard. I go up, how do you do it? I go to the address bar, and I think you just spell it Google. Yeah, Google. Let me double check that. Yeah. And then you can do .com, and then like this page will come up, and there's a little search bar there. And if you want to search something, like you learn about something, you go to that bar, and then you type in with the keyboard and your fingers whatever it is you want to look up. So let's say, for example, Bandito, who apparently is rumored to possibly be courted by WWE as well. There might be a little bidding war going on right now with AEW and WWE over the services of Bandito. But let's say you don't know who Bandito is. Google, like I said, Google.com. Go to that little bar, type in Bandito, wrestler, enter, and then wait for it to load. Anybody who's doing this probably has dial-up, so you have to wait for it to load. So once it does, you'll be able to read a whole bunch of shit about Bandito, where he was, where he's worked. Hell, under Google, there's also a videos tab. Click videos. It's going to drop down a whole bunch of his matches, maybe some of his championship matches, and you can watch them instantly. Simple as that. So the who the hell is this guy crowd are idiots, but maybe the who the hell is this guy crowd might be changing their tune if it's WWE that starts to do stuff like this. You put Minoru Suzuki on SmackDown, I promise you that will get a reaction from the crowd. That'll get a huge reaction on Twitter, get a pretty good reaction from the crowd as well. So if Triple H is now throwing his hat in the ring, per se, and saying, hey, I want to work with you guys too, can they work with both? Like what can New Japan say? Can they be like, yeah, but we want to continue working with AEW? I mean, shit, at some point we might get some sort of card somewhere, maybe even to Japan, where you've got New Japan, AEW, and WWE all being represented. Maybe not wrestling each other. Maybe AEW and WWE have matches against New Japan talent, but maybe not with each other. But maybe that's somewhere we could get one day. I don't know. I think that's way off in the future. But I think with Triple H, he for sure would be way more open to working with other promotions than Vince ever would have been, which could make things really interesting in the future, because one of the things that AEW seems to like to be doing is going out there. That's why Tony Khan went out there and bought Ring of Honor as quick as he could, and is going out there and working with other promotions. If Triple H decides that he wants to do that too, then it can be a matter of, a bidding war, so to speak. And that could be interesting, because that could really halt what Tony Khan has planned, or vice versa. We'll have to see. And it might just be Triple H's way of messing with Tony Khan. He knows Tony Khan and AEW have made some hires. They have given out some promotions. Tony Khan is still wearing a lot of hats, but maybe not as many as he was once before, but he's still doing a lot. Tony Khan's owns multiple sports teams. He's the head booker of this company. He's got a million things going on at once. If Triple H can just add some stress to Tony Khan's life just by making these little subtle moves or teases with New Japan. Hey, Riddle, post a picture with you and Suzuki, and let's put some other feelers out just to stress out Tony Khan. I wouldn't put that past Triple H at all. You know why? Because that's competition, and I'd expect Tony Khan to do the same thing to Triple H if he could. The only problem is Triple H, Vince McMahon have been doing this a lot longer than Tony Khan. He is still learning, as he's learned a couple of big lessons already with All Out and a couple of other things. He's still, he's still somebody that might not be as savvy in that department as those guys. So he's got to keep his emotions in check and not get too mad about it. He kind of lashed out a little bit at All Out when he was talking about WWE running Labor Day weekend, and he had every reason to be pissed. But that's just kind of the nature of competition. That's the type of stuff they're going to do to you, and you need to be able to figure out a way to counter that, manage it, and not come off sounding like Trump, where you're going to lash out and scream at everybody like a little bitch. Calm yourself. You don't need to make 29 tweets in 30 minutes on your bullshit social page or whatever. Just calm down, because when you panic and you melt down, you look like a bitch. And so that's why I would advise Tony Khan not to be that way. Just, anger is for amateurs. It's one of the mottos I live by. And when you show your emotions too much and you're yelling and you're screaming, all you're doing is giving away how truly fucked and scared you really are. So Tony Khan doesn't need to be doing that. Stay cool. Triple H is Joe Cool. So Triple H already gives off that vibe. Tony Khan can be a little bit erratic sometimes. So I think that, he's got to be able to keep his emotions in check, because I promise you, Triple H is going to fuck with you. He is. And I like Triple H. He's not all great, but I do like Triple H, and I'm happy he's in charge of WWE. And I know for a fact that this man will mess with Tony Khan when given the chance. So Tony, be prepared to fight. Anywho, let's move on to SmackDown from last night. I want to talk a little bit about SmackDown because we saw the return of Bray Wyatt to SmackDown, and that was what closed the show. But before we get to that, let's run through the rest of SmackDown. First of all, I have to shout out the pretty decent rating. They've got some early numbers are in. I don't know if this is official yet, but SmackDown is recording a 2.1 million rating for last night, 0.54 in the share. Pretty good number and consistent with what SmackDown has been doing lately. The show opened up with a car accident. Basically, two cars crashed together. Karrion Kross is one of the passengers in the car, along with Scarlett. He's getting out, and he's all, he's hurt, and he's limping out of the car. And then he's attacked by a tank top wearing Drew McIntyre, who just beats the shit out of Kross right there at the scene of a traffic accident. And that was it. So I only watched a sped up version of SmackDown. I don't know if they... Basically, I don't know if they said who caused the accident or if they described what exactly happened, because the show started with the cars already crashed and the cars smoking. So were they saying that Drew McIntyre committed vehicular assault on Karrion Kross, smashed into him, and then beat the shit out of him? I think Drew McIntyre might go to jail. Now, Steve Austin did this too. He almost ran over Rikishi back in 2000. But I think I couldn't tell if they were making it seem like Drew caused the accident, or if Drew just happened to be walking around outside having a smoke when he saw the accident and used that as an opportunity to jump Karrion Kross. I'm not sure. I think Drew might have caused the accident though, and it looks like the feud with him and Kross is going to continue, and Karrion Kross was scheduled to be in the Fatal 4-Way number one IC contenders match that would take place later on that he would be removed from. The show in the arena opens up. We're gonna get a match with Sami Zayn and Kofi Kingston. Kofi's already in the ring. I love the stuff at Gorilla. Prior to the match, Sami is back there with Solo Sikoa, and Jey Uso walks in. Now, Jimmy is not there. Sammy did ask where Jimmy was, and Jay's like, oh, he's just taking care of business, so I have no idea if that's work or storyline. I have no idea if something happened with Jimmy and he couldn't make the show, so they just said he was taking care of business, or if it's storyline and he just wasn't supposed to be there to allow Jay to help Sammy on his own like we would see. Not really sure, but it was a hilarious segment because, of course, Jay is kind of on the outside looking in right now. He hates Sami Zayn, but Roman loves him, and Jimmy Uso also kind of likes Sammy. Solo seems to be cool with him, and Sammy's in good right now with the Bloodline. He's an honorary Uso. And after Jay tells Sammy that Jimmy's not going to be there, the phone rings. It's like the old school phone ring, too. It's like, ring. And he picks it up and is like, oh, it's Roman. And gives the phone to Sammy. And Sammy's laughing and he's getting some orders from Roman. He's like, yeah, absolutely. And then he gives the phone over to Jay. And you can see Jay on the phone with Roman, and Roman's giving him some orders too. He's like, all right, man, all right. And then he gives the phone back to Sammy. I might have this mixed up. I just remember Sammy laughing at something that Roman said, and then Jay being like, hey, what'd he say? What'd he say? Am I still up? Okay. Oh, I thought I was frozen there for a second. I just remember Roman telling Sammy something, and then Jay being like, what'd he say? And Sammy be like, it's an inside joke. You wouldn't understand. I fucking laughed my ass off. So anyway, then Sammy orders Solo to hang back. You got a big match later on tonight. You're in that Fatal 4-Way. Why don't you just chill out? Jay, you coming with me. So Sammy's giving out orders now in the Bloodline, which makes me so happy. And Solo does exactly what Sammy says. Sammy's like, look, you got a big match, bro. You hang back. And Solo's like, all right, no problem. Jay, you're with me. And so Jay comes out and joins Sami Zayn in his match with Kofi Kingston and helps him win. Kofi rolls up Sammy. And Jay, while the referee is kind of out of position, he pushes through the ropes, just pushes the roll-up over and reverses it, basically. Sammy now is rolling up Kofi, and the referee counts 3, and Jey Uso, probably on orders of Roman Reigns, helps Sami Zayn get the victory, because on Raw, of course, Jay didn't help Sammy. Roman told him to help him. Sammy's told him to not. Jay chose to obey Sammy. Now Roman's pissed. This time he helps Sammy win and got the victory, and I'm loving that. So as long as they want to keep this Sami Zayn and Bloodline stuff going, I'm fine with it. Part of me wonders, though, eventually when it happens, because at some point Sami Zayn will be murdered by the Bloodline. That's going to happen. So I'm going to ask you guys, do you think that when Sammy inevitably gets destroyed and the Bloodline kicks him out, is it going to be a situation where Roman is going to have to change his tune, no longer like Sammy, and instructs his family to remove this mole off of our ass? Or are they just using him the whole time? Is this whole thing an act? Because Roman is being a little bit over the top by treating Sammy like family and Jay like not family. Roman's done that before. He treated Jay like shit a couple of years ago before Jimmy came back when they had their series of matches together. So Jay has always had issues with Roman and his position in the Bloodline and whatnot. But when it comes time to get rid of Sammy, is it going to be revealed that the whole time the Jey Uso stuff was just an act? The whole time that Roman and Jimmy and Solo were just using Sammy, and they really, in their hearts, felt the same way Jay did, but they were hiding it better, and they were just using Sammy to get to some ultimate goal. The only problem is I don't know what that goal is. They already have all the championships. So what are they using Sammy to accomplish? So if it all turns out to be just a ruse, what does that mean? I have an idea. This is how boss I think the Bloodline would be. Roman and Heyman have both mentioned that there's just nobody left to beat. There's nothing left to do. This dude is wrestling a YouTuber in Saudi Arabia in a couple of weeks. He's got no real tangible threats to his championship right now. The Usos, same thing. They're on top of the world. They got all the titles. The Bloodline literally as strong as ever. Do you think that the Bloodline is doing this simply to amuse themselves? Is it going to be revealed at the end of this? Because like I said, they're using Sammy, yes, obviously, but using him for what? Using him for what? What do they need him for? They are strong as fuck without him. Solo is all the muscle you need. Sammy, yes, adds a lot of comedy relief and comedic relief. He's popped and broken Roman a couple of times right there in the middle of the ring, where Roman had to turn away from the camera to stop the camera from seeing the snot coming out of his nose from laughing so hard. So I don't want that to go anywhere. But do you think because the Bloodline is so on top and they just have nothing else to do and they're just bored, they're like, let's just take somebody and fuck with them for 6 months just to amuse ourselves. And at the end, when we have to tell him that we've used him and we have to break his heart and we have to shatter his life and shatter his dreams, we're going to do that just because it gives us our jollies. Do you think that could be the ultimate payoff here when Sammy eventually gets knocked out of the Bloodline, which has got to be coming at some point? I kind of think that would be funny. I mean, because that would be the ultimate insult, to think so lowly of you that we are just going to use you and string you along and play you like a fiddle until we're done with you, and then we're going to cast you aside. And then Sammy can feel ashamed, embarrassed, broken. I've never felt like less of a man, on the verge of just giving it all up and disappearing, until an old buddy knocks on the door. Mr. Owens comes in, rallies his friend, and Kevin Owens and Sammy come together, and they take the belts off the Usos. Don't you think that would be cool? So anyway, I don't know how it's all going to pay off with Sammy and the Bloodline. I don't know. But he's going to be booted out there at some point. A lot of people have been looking at War Games as a potential spot for that. Either Sammy being a member of the team, fucking up and getting killed in that cage by the Bloodline at the end of it when he costs him to lose or something, or if he gets kicked out prior to that, and then he's on the other side of the Bloodline in the War Games. Whatever they do, they got about a month to figure it out. So I'm kind of on the fence. Part of me wants to see what happens when they finally kick out Sammy, but at the same time, I still think there's enough mileage here to keep this until the end of the year. Eventually, it's probably going to wear out its welcome, and some fans are probably, because they're like this with everything, some fans are probably going to be like, oh, when is this going to end already? Like they always do. But I still think you don't have to end it quite yet. It can't go on for another year. I'm not stupid. But I still think there's enough, because I'm telling you, if we can get some Sammy and Bloodline segments like around the Christmas holidays, presents to the tribal chief, the type of present that Sami Zayn could potentially buy for Roman Reigns would be great, wouldn't it? So I kind of hope they last a little bit longer here. But when the breakup inevitably happens, I'm curious how WWE's gonna book that out. Should be good. Anyway, after that, we had Braun Strowman beating the Jabronis. I could not stop laughing how Michael Cole was calling them the Jabronis. I have no idea who these two guys that Gabe Sapolsky brought in, but they were sacrificed to Braun Strowman in a handicap match at ringside, or actually on the other side, on the across from the, what am I trying to say here? Not at ringside, but on the other side of the barricade with the fans. Omos and MVP show up and watch Braun Strowman's match. Braun smashes the J-Brones, and then MVP gets on the mic and starts touting how big and more powerful that Omos is. And we talked about this. I think, the second week after Strowman made his debut, because he debuted on Raw, and that was the very first thing I thought of. I'm like, are they going to put him with Omos? I cannot believe I'm finding myself in a situation where I'm going to be rooting for Braun Strowman. I think I've never met Omos or even heard him speak or anything like that, but I have a feeling I probably like Omos as a person a little bit more than Braun Strowman, because Strowman's just an ass sometimes. But Strowman's better than Omos. I hate to say it. Omos is just not clicking with me in the ring. I almost think he's too big for his own good. We talked about this last week. It's not his fault. When you're Omos size, when you're Satnam Singh size, when you're Great Khali size, there is only so much you can do. And, Giant Gonzalez was like that too. Andre in his later years was like that too. Could barely fucking work. And Omos, they've tried. He's definitely big. The size is there, but he's just, to me, he's, unless you just threw him in title matches the way they did with the Great Khali, which I also didn't like, I don't really see much to Omos. And I think if they're going to set him up for a match or a feud or an angle with Strowman, I kind of hope Strowman beats him and sends Omos on his way. And like I said, it's nothing against Omos personally. It's just they've been doing the same thing with him forever now. He's not necessarily getting any better. He's just humongous. He's already been beaten. They did the match with Lashley and all of that. So it's not like we've been waiting for somebody to knock him off his feet or beat him. We've already done all of that. So at this point, put him in the ring with Strowman, the other, token big man in WWE. Naturally, these guys are going to be rivals, and we'll see when that match happens. Maybe they're just going to set that one up for Crown Jewel, because that would probably be a pretty good attraction for the fans there in Saudi Arabia, those two monsters. And to see Strowman in the ring with a guy that is like a foot taller than him is going to be a pretty strange image as well. So I definitely think that Strowman is going to be he's going to be working Crown Jewel and possibly against Omos. We had the return of LA Knight, who finally shedded that Max Dupree nonsense and removed himself from the Maximum Male Models. He's taken on one of his old friends here, Mansois and Massey. Now, I think the Maximum Male Models shit is great because it's hilarious. To me, it's a lot like Ezekiel. It's just funny. I don't mind funny shit. I don't know why fans get mad at funny shit. Watching Mansois wrestle in those little short shorts and that see-through top, it just made me think of the time that they were they in Jeddah, or where were they when he wrestled for the first time over there when they did that big pay-per-view? I'm like, man, what if he came out in front of that crowd wearing the shit that he wore last night? Would be pretty funny. LA Knight got the win, cut a promo after the match. Very happy that LA Knight is allowed to be LA Knight. I did laugh at fans, though, when he was Max Dupree, and they're like, oh, bring back LA Knight. We all thought LA Knight was stupid. Basically it's like, they need I can't believe they changed his WWE name to a different WWE name. They need to drop that WWE name to go back to his old WWE name. So neither name was really great to me, but LA Knight is far better than Max Dupree. He should have never come in as Max Dupree. That was stupid. It's one of the biggest problems I had with the Vince regime is you would take people, get them established in NXT, get them familiar with the system, get the fans familiar with them, let them develop their personality, their character, what kind of person they're going to be. Then you bring them to the main roster and you take away everything that they've been working on for the past 2 years. Who thinks that's the right formula? What in the world was going on in that senile old kook's head to sit there and think, I got to take him and just completely strip him down to everything he's been working on, practicing, and developing for the past, I don't know how many years? That's all out the window now? Just because this crazy old man sees a different vision for him? Fuck that. So I'm glad that shit's gone. It's still infuriating. Even when I talk about it, it makes me mad. So I'm very happy that LA Knight is LA Knight again. He's, I know he's getting up there in age. I know he's in his 40s. Still has a great look, great physique, fantastic on the mic, good in the ring. I say he can do this until he can. And then eventually I think he still can be an excellent mouthpiece for a stable if he still wants to do that. Kind of like MVP. MVP was in the hurt business, but he'd get in the ring every now and then. So I think LA Knight can wrestle, but I think he also has the potential to be some sort of an on-screen mouthpiece character doing something else other than just simply wrestling in the future. I think for right now, he should probably wrestle and wrestle only, cut his promos and just be LA Knight whenever that runs its course. Or if he ever gets injured, stick a headset on him and throw him on guest commentary one night or something. Just have him do something. He's too good not to use, and I'm just happy that LA Knight is back to being LA Knight, even if he can't be Eli Drake. After that, we had Damage Control picking up a 6-women victory against Shotzi, Raquel Rodriguez, and Roxanne Perez. Now, Roxanne Perez made her debut last night on SmackDown backstage prior to the match. That basically set up this 6-woman match. I guess she's got a match coming up, a Pick Your Poison match coming up on Tuesday against Cora Jade, where she gets to pick Cora's opponent. So Roxanne, backstage on SmackDown, told Raquel that she's going to pick her. And Raquel's like, oh, really? That's so sweet, which is just ridiculous because if I'm approached by an NXT person and say, hey, I select you to go down to Florida and work our developmental show and get in a match where you could potentially get hurt against a heel, and I selected that for you. Merry Christmas. I'd almost be like, I don't want to do that. Like, if I was Raquel, I wouldn't have been like, oh, that's so sweet. I'm like, why would you do that? I'm on SmackDown now. I'm trying to challenge and compete for championships. I don't need to go down there and risk one of those developmental fuckers hurting me by doing a run or hit me in the face with a skateboard or something. I don't want to do it. Go pick someone else. That's what I would tell Roxanne Perez. But instead, Raquel was like, oh, sweetie, thank you. So fucking stupid. Anyway, Damage Control then shows up. And the funniest part was when Bailey's there talking to Roxanne, and she goes, well, I hope you brought your gear, you little idiot. We'll see you in the ring. Just when she called Roxanne Perez a little idiot, I just laughed so hard. I don't know why. But then in the ring, we had the 6-woman match. Bailey actually pinned the little idiot. I think she hit the rose plant on her for the win and pinned Roxanne Perez. I did read the report that management and WWE was very impressed with Roxanne Perez's first main roster match. I don't know if she's going to be here permanently or if this was just a one-time thing for her to come in, select, resurrect Raquel and then give her a rep, give her some TV time just for some experience before sending her down back to NXT to finish up there. But so far, so good for Roxanne. WWE seems to be happy with her, even though she might be a little idiot, according to Bailey. I hope you brought your gear, you little idiot. The weirdest things pop me sometimes. I don't know why. Anyway, after that, we had a Sonya Deville interview where she is talking about Liv Morgan and what a fucking loser she is. She's then attacked by Liv, who comes in like a bat out of hell, screaming, kicking, going nuts. She ends up beating the hell out of Sonya Deville, climbs up to the top of a ladder, and delivers one of those senton bombs to Sonya right through the table, making all sorts of weird convulsions and facial expressions after. Something is up with Liv Morgan. Then we get to our Fatal 4-Way Intercontinental Title #1 contenders match between Karrion Kross, Solo Sikoa, Ricochet, and Sheamus. Now, prior to the match, due to the auto accident and the physical assault suffered by Karrion Kross at the hands of Drew McIntyre, Samantha Irvin announced that that Kross has not been medically cleared for competition, and he's not able to be in the match. So he's going to be replaced by Rey Mysterio. Now, prior to the match, a couple of segments earlier, Rey Mysterio approached Triple H backstage and said, look, man, it took him a while to get this out, but he basically just said, because of everything going on Raw, because of what happened with my son and Dominic just constantly tormenting me and wanting to fight, I will not fight my son no matter what, under any circumstances. It will not happen. No. So the only way I can ensure that I'm not going to fight my son is I have to quit. I quit, Triple H, he says. And Triple H is like, well, before you do anything too crazy, why don't you come to my office? So apparently what they worked out in the office is that Triple H has worked out a deal to move Rey Mysterio to the SmackDown brand. Now, on one hand, I like this because one of the things that drives me nuts about these brands is they come up with the dumbest reasons to move people around. They don't even give you reasons. Sometimes somebody is just on Raw now, or sometimes somebody is just on SmackDown now with no explanation whatsoever. WWE doesn't even give a shit. Doesn't even care enough to give us an explanation. They don't care. So whenever we get some sort of legitimate reason for somebody switching brands, I'm in favor of it. So that I like because it's something that actually fits the storyline. That makes sense. Triple H, I can't be on Raw because my son's there. He wants to fight me. I want to get away from that situation. And Triple H is like, okay, I don't want to lose you. Let's move you to a different brand. The only problem with this is this apparently was okay with Rey Mysterio. Why didn't Rey Mysterio, they didn't show any of this meeting with Triple H, but if this kayfabe meeting happened and they're talking, why wouldn't Mysterio say, look, Hunter, I appreciate it, man, but you know as well as I do, the Dominic can still get to me on SmackDown because Raw guys are on SmackDown every week and SmackDown guys are on Raw every week. You know it can still happen. I think it's absurd that Rey moving to SmackDown means that Dominic can't get to him anymore. The fuck he can't. Any guy can show up on any show anytime they want. There are no rules in WWE. So even with Rey on SmackDown, I think Dominic will show up on SmackDown and fuck with him. And as we would see in the match, Rey Mysterio came out of that Fatal 4-Way as the winner, pinning Ricochet. Have Ricochet and Rey Mysterio ever had a one-on-one match? If they haven't, they need to. Feels like they would have had one by now, but it was kind of interesting to see them work in the ring. I'm like, that's pretty cool fucking one-on-one matchup. So Rey got the win, pinning Ricochet. He is now the #1 contender for the Intercontinental title, which I think reveals exactly what I was just talking about. I don't know when that match is taking place. I didn't catch it, but is the Intercontinental title match taking place next week? Is that when we get it? Gunther and Gunther and Rey Mysterio? Or are they saving this for like Crown Jewel? Probably not. It will probably happen next week or maybe the week after on TV. Whenever this Intercontinental title match is happening, that's when I expect Dominic to show up. Dominic is going to cost Rey Mysterio the title. I can't see I can't see Rey Mysterio beating Gunther for the title. I can't see Rey beating Gunther for the title at all, much less clean or anything else. I think Gunther could just beat him clean without any help, but I think just for good measure, they should have Dominic come out, cost Rey the title, just to, further that storyline. Eventually, I think they're trying to go with the angle here to where Rey, it just boils over. Eventually, Rey Mysterio finds himself in a position where he has no choice but to face Dominic. Now, I don't know how they're going to get there. I don't know what their situation they're going to put Rey in to make him feel like he has no other choice but to fight his son, but they're going to have to get there somehow. Somebody pitched to me last night, oh, you could have Dominic win the U.S. title on Raw and Rey could win the IC title, and then you do the two of them at Survivor Series. I don't really think a father-son match like this even needs any championships involved in a storyline like this. I hate to say that because I think people say those two guys don't need the title. They say that way too often without analyzing really what it means. They're saying it right now with Rock and Roman Reigns. They don't need the title. I'm like, they don't? Okay, I kind of think they do, but whatever. But with this situation, I don't think they do, at least not at first. Their first match should just be father and son. Later, if you want to continue the feud like Brett and Owen did, Brett and Owen's first match was just brother and brother. Then you start adding title matches after that. Then Brett won the title. Then their whole program was for the championship. I think their first match just needs to be one-on-one against each other. Then if you want to make one man a champion and one man beats the other one for it, I think it could work either way. Rey taking the title away from his son and taking his son to the proverbial woodshed, or Rey, getting heartbroken even more by his own son taking one of his championships off of him. And I think Rey Mysterio did a phenomenally convincing job on Monday night of selling that. When they came back to commercial break and he was sitting there on the ring apron and he was crying, that got to me, man. Like, he really convinced me. I just thought it was really well done. And it really made me feel bad for Rey Mysterio. And you really want him, number one, to stop feeling this pain that he's going through, but at the same time, eventually beat the ever-loving shit out of his little turd son at some point. And that's going to happen. So I think Rey is going to get a couple of more heartbreaks. He's got the IC title match coming up whenever that is. Dominic will fuck that up, I have no doubt. And Rey will find himself maybe a couple of feet closer to actually eventually getting in the ring with Dominic. When that match happens is anybody's guess. I feel like if I had to choose, I'd much prefer that match to take place at Survivor Series than Crown Jewel. I do not want that match to happen at Crown Jewel. Survivor Series seems a little bit more likely since we're not sure the format of the show. It doesn't look like it's going to be the team shit anymore. Doesn't look like it's going to be the brand supremacy shit anymore. They're going to have a War Games match, probably with the Bloodline and somebody else, that leaves the rest of the card open for plenty of championship matches or one-on-one matches. I don't know if they're going to do the title for title thing. I mean, if they are, Lashley and Gunther is out the window now because Lashley's going to be working with Brock and Seth as the champion. But if they want to do champion versus champion stuff, hell, Seth and Gunther ain't that bad of a match on paper either, is it? So regardless of what they do at Survivor Series, I am just looking forward to it. I just hope that Survivor Series can, return to form, because it really is the second pay-per-view WWE ever did outside of WrestleMania, or the second, annual pay-per-view they ever did. It's been in existence for 35 years, since 1987. So it should be a big pay-per-view. And that's where I'd rather see Rey and Dom if it finally gets to that. And then finally on SmackDown, we saw the return of Bray Wyatt. They saved him right for the end. And this was so good. My God. Okay. So time for Bray Wyatt to come out. Lights go out. We have brand new entrants and brand new music for Bray Wyatt. So the first thing I need to know, what did you guys think of the music? Did you like it? It's a very different sounding theme, almost like a Christian rock vibe to it or something, with some pianos at the beginning and some creepy aspects to it. I've only listened to it once, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. Maybe a little bit on the fence about it, but I think it will grow on me. And it was interesting because when he came out with the lantern and the lights out and the phones going off in the arena. But you see what he was wearing? He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He was out there dressed like a normal human being. And he got in the ring and he spoke as a normal human being, perhaps for the first time ever in any version of a Bray Wyatt character. We've heard him speak to us just as him, as Bray Wyatt. The closest we got to this was maybe Husky Harris or something back in the day, prior to him becoming the Bray Wyatt persona. But this was as normal and as human as he's ever been. And that right there set up a red flag. I'm like, this is weird. There's no way I can see this Bray Wyatt coming back and just being this guy in jeans and a t-shirt. And I think this basically had like a two-pronged effect. Number one, it allows Bray Wyatt, for really the first time in a while, to actually get an opportunity to speak to us as himself and to say very genuine and real things. I mean, he was very grateful about the support the fans showed him. He even looked like he was legit emotional in what he was saying in terms of the fans welcoming him back and him talking about how when he was at his darkest point, the fans really picked him up and reminded him of how much he's loved and how much he means to them and vice versa, and really went on a nice genuine thank you promo on the fans. And it was really nice. And the whole time I'm waiting for him to like start healing on him or something. And I'm like, he's out there in street clothes. All of the shit leading up to his return was so creepy. And the return at Extreme Rules, like we saw, and we talked about Extreme Rules night when we saw all of the Firefly Funhouse characters in the stands and the Fiend at ringside, and then they cut to the, what looked to be like a cobweb-infested Firefly Funhouse that hasn't been occupied in a long time. I felt that was Bray Wyatt shedding all of that off of him, and whatever we see from him in the future is going to be, all new. I never really thought the idea of Firefly Funhouse characters coming to life and people wrestling in the ring as the Buzzard and Husky Harris is really a good idea. You want to see a guy in a big fucking pig suit wrestle in the ring? Not me. So I had no real interest in seeing the Funhouse characters coming to life, but a Bray Wyatt faction, the Wyndham Six, could be a whole nother story. That could be a lot of fun. So when you saw how all of that, the teases and all the hints to Bray Wyatt's past, and then all the Funhouse stuff, it looked to be that was him saying goodbye to all of that stuff at Extreme Rules, and we're going to get the new Bray Wyatt on SmackDown. And I didn't really see any that many references to any Funhouse shit last night on SmackDown. It was mostly just Bray Wyatt coming out and speaking to the fans. And then right in the middle of his speech or his promo, the lights go out, and we've got that masked figure, that masked man appearing on the screen, speaking in kind of a distorted voice. He said things like, "Oh, little one, forget the future, forget the past, life is over. You've got no idea who you're dealing with, do you? But you will." And he laughs, "Oh, but you will." And then we get the little Bray Wyatt butterfly logo, and the show goes off the air. And that's all it was. And I think that's fucking great because you don't really know where they're going with this, really. I saw some fans actually complaining about it, and I'm like, yep, there you go, that instant gratification crowd that they got to have, the fans who've got to have their cake and eat it yesterday probably aren't going to dig this. But to me, that's the best thing about it, because it did reveal a little bit to us, but it also really left us perplexed, left us guessing and not really knowing what yet the motivation or plans of Bray Wyatt is. And there's really no reason for us to know yet. He just came back a week ago. Just chill. I'm fine with the slow burn, especially when you hear things about WWE already have a lot of creative plans in place and have a general idea where they want to go with this all the way until WrestleMania. So we're going to be on their time now, and they're going to have to unveil and reveal stuff to us as they go. And it looks like, at least in the first Bray Wyatt promo, that this could be a split personality type of gimmick, and that the masked man on the screen is really him. Now, when he has a split personality, how many personalities is that? We've talked about the Wyatt Six. That's currently his Twitter handle. There's a lot of speculation that Bray Wyatt could be joining or forming a faction, but is he forming a faction with current WWE stars, or is he forming a faction with 5 other versions of himself? Is he going to have like 6 different split personalities, each one with a different entrance music? I was hoping White Rabbit would stick around, but it looks like that might be gone. But maybe the theme that we heard Bray Wyatt come out to last night is only one of like several themes he's going to have. So what do you guys think? Is it a split personality, or is it both? Is this guy going to feud with himself? That's kind of what I want to know. So this whole thing is kind of intriguing. It's different. We haven't seen it before. Who knows if it's going to work? I feel confident about it because I think this has all been well thought out. They're not just like Vince would do. Hey, let's just do a whole bunch of crazy shit and figure it out as we go. This seems like they know where they're going. And I'm intrigued about what it's going to lead to and what Wyatt's basically motivations are and who he's going to be feuding with. Now, if he is going to be starting, let's say, a faction, there's been a lot of names tossed around. Liv Morgan's been acting real weird. Alexa Bliss, of course, already has the previous history with Bray Wyatt. Karrion Kross was once known as the White Rabbit, and there's been a few hints to him. Even some NXT guys like Joe Gacy, who a lot of people believe was dressed up as Huskus in the crowd the other night at Extreme Rules, which he probably was, but I don't think that means it's going to be him specifically. And plus, like I said, the Firefly Funhouse characters coming to life in wrestling would be a fucking circus. Nobody wants that. So he's kind of been tossed around. And another name that's been rumored in the last few days is his brother, Bo Dallas, who also could maybe be coming in to be a part of whatever Bray Wyatt is going to be doing. So, like I said, we have to figure out, it still remains to be seen what he's going to be doing, who he's going to be targeting, if he's going to have split personalities, if he's going to be forming a faction, or both. Maybe it's a split personality and faction. And if his personalities are going to have different roles in what he does. Literally sitting here illiterate and blind to the whole situation because we don't know. And that's what's fun. So I am looking forward to finding out, getting more clues, getting more hints to what he could possibly be doing. WWE also this week filed trademarks for Uncle Howdy and Uncle Harper. Now, there's a couple of ROH boys, former ROH boys. This could be for, as people mentioned, Vincent and the other guy. Vincent really looks like he could be someone who would fit right into the Wyatt family. So there's a lot of rumors that it could just be for them, a new couple of guys they're bringing in. But when you see the Uncle Harper part, I would love it if Wyatt, in whatever he's doing here, whatever Bray Wyatt's got going on with his split personalities or his faction or whatever, if there was some sort of Brody Lee tribute in there. That's his friend. And if they do an Uncle Harper, or they've trademarked Uncle Harper for some way, I would love it if there was some sort of little Brody tribute or running reference in whatever Bray Wyatt is going to do. I think that would be great. And for all the fans that say, oh, his wife would have to be okay with that first, let me tell you something. Without knowing anything, I'm pretty sure that if Bray Wyatt wanted to tribute his friend, that any conversations or communication with Amanda would be done by Bray Wyatt. WWE would not have a representative call her and be like, hey, we're going to use your husband's likeness in something. Hope that's cool. And first of all, I don't even know if they need her permission, to be honest. I don't think they need her permission to tribute or to make a character Uncle Harper. Maybe they need her permission to do other things with Brody's image and likeness, but anything that they own, any Luke Harper matches that they own, they can show that shit whenever they want. So I don't even think they need Amanda's permission to do this anyway. But I also think, out of respect for Brody Lee and the love that Bray Wyatt has for him as a friend and as a human, that of course Amanda is going to be consulted about this, and I'm pretty sure it's Bray Wyatt going to be the one to do it. Who would say, hey, is it okay with you if I do something for Brody in my thing? I'd like to name a character after him or have a reference to him. It would mean a lot to me, and it would mean a lot maybe to the fans and and some other people in the company. I'm sure she'd be more than happy to do that. So I'm not really concerned about that. When I saw a lot of the Luke Harper and Uncle Harper chatter, it was gross. I didn't really like what I was reading. It's all these people getting too upset or speculating about shit they shouldn't speculate about, or being way too worried about what wives or what Amanda is agreeing to, or if she's if she's been consulted and all this. I promise all those things have been done. I just don't see Bray Wyatt or Triple H or doing anything on WWE TV as a tribute to Brody Lee without Amanda's knowing or permission or blessing or anything like that. For fans to even suggest that, I think is just stupid, and you're just looking for stuff to hate. But if Uncle Harper is anything Brody Lee related, I love that. Absolutely love it. And the Wrestling Observer actually did report this week that WWE already has long-term plans for next year's WrestleMania in April for the Wyatt family, the Wyatt Six, or whatever. And Meltzer seems to think that a faction is very likely with a Wyatt Six group, but who's in it, how that even gets formed, I think we're too far away from there. And I do like the little hints that WWE is putting out there. I think even Joe Gacy has made hints to things. Liv Morgan's kind of acting a little bit funny. Several wrestlers have put their Twitters to dark. So I think WWE is trying to keep the fans guessing as well. And we even heard the story that they're actually intentionally putting out some false stories out there just to kind of throw fans off the trail of some things. So I am in no rush to find out. I don't want to be spoiled by anything that the Wyatt family or Bray Wyatt is going to do in the future. I am going to have fun finding out, as we all do, week by week, what is going to happen with this. So I really liked it because once it was over, it gave you no answers. And some fans find that frustrating because fans are young and they want that their instant gratification. They want everything and they want it now. So when they don't get the answers they want right away, they try to pretend like something's been improperly booked. No, just for once in your fucking life, you don't know what's coming. And that's good. Enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. You don't need to know everything. It's fun not knowing is the way I look at it. So SmackDown last night I thought was a good show. I loved everything about the Bray Wyatt promo and his return last night, and I think it's really fun. Really fun. Anywho. Oh, yeah, Eric Redbeard is another guy, good point, that deal 79, who I think could be coming in and has not really signed any deals with AEW, even though he's made a couple of appearances there. I could totally see Triple H bringing him back in. Maybe he will be Uncle Howdy. You know, what was it? Uncle Howdy Redbeard or something like that. He could be Uncle Howdy, and we could have, maybe an Uncle Harper character or reference or something like that to tribute the other bludgeon brother, Brody Lee. So we'll see what that winds up including in the future. Michael Hughes, I did not say hi to you. Good to see you joining in here late. I got to get into some Dynamite stuff here as well because we got to be shutting things down. But we are going to wrap up business today with some AEW talk, a little bit of Dynamite and Rampage real quick. Now, of course, this past Wednesday, I was not here to watch AEW Dynamite with you guys. I'm sorry. I will be here, though, this Tuesday as the Tuesday Night Wars return, and we got that big AEW Dynamite scheduled with 3 big title matches, Mox and Hangman, and we've got Shida and Tony Storm and Chris Jericho defending against Dalton Castle. Should be really good, but this past week on Dynamite was really fun. Renee Paquette, who we talked about earlier, she opened the show on Dynamite. So awesome to see her. She looked great. Absolutely a delight to see her face. Welcomes us all to Toronto, to Dynamite, and introduces Christian, who then comes out and introduces Luchasaurus. And that's our opening match, Luchasaurus versus Jungle Boy. What a match. This was a hardcore match stipulation or something like that because they were using tables and all sorts of nonsense. Christian began the match on commentary, but eventually would find his way down to ringside. Pretty good spots in this match. They were all over the place, killing each other. Sunset flip from Jungle Boy onto Luchasaurus, onto the table. At one point was great off the ring apron. That looked really good. One of the things I noticed right off the bat about this match is in the past 3 years, how much Luchasaurus, I was about to say Jungle Boy as well, but Luchasaurus has also improved greatly. I think Jungle Boy's always had a lot of that in him. We've seen him have some good matches and get better and better, but Luchasaurus is another guy that I think has really improved, and this match was a good indicator for that because he was really doing some good work in there. This is not a style of match we've seen him work a ton of times, and working with his friend here, a guy who's much smaller and doing all these crazy spots, was really good. I'm not sure if this very same exact match would have been as good if you did this 2.5 years ago. I think it was much better today. Luchasaurus is a much better pro, and so is Jungle Boy, and this was all kinds of fun. Now, Luchasaurus would wind up surviving not only a kill switch by Jungle Boy, but also a snare trap, and that's when Christian starts getting a little bit nervous, pops off headset, comes down to ringside, and is trying to get involved in the match somehow. And all he really winds up doing is offering a fair distraction to Christian as he's trying to help out Luchasaurus escape the snare trap, which I believe he does on his own, but that pisses off Jungle Boy. He gets out of the ring. He starts chasing Christian around, and then he finds himself back in the ring getting caught by Luchasaurus, who hits his, whatever that finisher is. It's almost like a reverse AA. It's like a Sammy Guevara GTFH, but you don't hit the H or something. So whatever the reverse AA thing is that Lucha uses, he hits Jungle Boy with that and gets the win and beats him in a match that I think he should have won. I think Jungle Boy still is a strong pillar on that AEW roster, and I still think Christian is waiting to heal up so he can put Jungle Boy over. So I think losing here to Luchasaurus, to the bigger man, I think was the right way to book this one because it continues Luchasaurus on his run and his heel run, and it doesn't, in my mind, damage Jungle Boy all that much. And in the end, once Christian's healthy, we're going to get that payoff, that Jungle Boy-Christian match that I firmly believe Jungle Boy will win. We had Wardjoe teaming up to face the Factory, QT Marshall and Nick Camarado. Wardjoe is a fun team to watch. A lot of people seem to like him, although I feel like, Wardlow was on quite the rise there for a while, and it seemed like his momentum got a little bit stalled, and now putting him in a tag team with Samoa Joe is great and everything, and Samoa Joe can probably act as a really great veteran to maybe give Wardlow some advice here or there. I'm really happy that the two of them, have a team and whatnot, but it would have been weird to see Goldberg, after he beat Raven for the U.S. title, just start teaming up with Ice Train or something. It would have been weird. So luckily, the act is over. Fans like to see him. Of course, Wardlow is still your TNT champion, and he's still very, very dominant. at some point, he's got to continue that run, and I don't know how long the Wardlow team really needs to remain a team or not, but they did make quick work out of QT and Nick. The Embassy came out at the end of that and challenged Wardlow, I guess basically to a match, and that's when FTR comes out, and they come out instead, and they get in the ring to join Wardlow. Embassy is on the outside of the ring, and FTR's like, look, man, there's 3 of y'all. These 2 guys just had a match. I'm not going to ask them to wrestle again. So why don't we have a match this Friday? But there's only 3 of you and 2 of us, but I think we can find a suitable replacement. I think we can find a suitable partner, I should say. And he's from Canada, and they introduce a returning Shawn Spears, who came out to a great ovation. Last time I saw Shawn Spears, he was a douchey, chair-wielding heel who I hated. Now he's a babyface, because a lot of the Pinnacle is actually babyface now anyway. And Shawn comes out, huge ovation from the crowd. I don't know if he's going to get that ovation every week because he was in Canada here, and joins up with FTR, and the 3 of them would face Embassy last night on Rampage. We also had on Wednesday night Swerve Strickland defeating Billy Gunn. Crazy that Billy Gunn is the oldest member of DX, yet the only one active. Isn't that nuts? And I don't really think that Swerve needed to cheat to beat Billy Gunn, but he did. He wound up holding the ropes to get a little extra leverage on a pinning combination, beat Billy Gunn, and won the match. After the match, the Acclaimed come down to the ring. They walk past Swerve to get into the ring to console Billy after his loss. And Billy seems to be okay with it, and they get up, and everything seems to be all right, and they're about to do the scissor me for the fans to make everybody happy when they are interrupted by Smart Mark Sterling, who's been all over the place lately, and told them that they can't scissor anymore because he has trademarked scissor me, which means anytime you do the hand signal, anytime you do the scissoring in the ring, and anytime you sell merchandise, all that money comes to me. And if you do the scissoring stuff, I'm going to sue you, and you're basically handcuffed. So I don't really like legal stuff coming into wrestling storylines, but this is kind of okay. I don't know if I totally hate some asshole like Mark Sterling going around trademarking shit out from underneath people. And he's doing it legit. I think he legitimately in real life owns these trademarks. Because there's another one that he bought too, right? So I think he's up to like 2 of them or something. But if this is something they're going to be doing with him, and he's going to go around and buy up these trademarks, I think it might be kind of a funny storyline, although I can see some issues with it as well. So we'll see what else is out there that hasn't been trademarked yet. But Mark Sterling is going on a trademarking spree, apparently. We cut backstage after that. MJF is being interviewed, and he's asked a little bit about the handshake, the near handshake with Wheeler Yuta last week, and the curious interaction he had with William Regal. And I was wondering if they were maybe planting seeds for a future MJF babyface run. You know, because you feel like that's going to be coming at some point down the road, probably in 2023. So I thought maybe all that was a little tease for that. But then Stokely showed up, and MJF got really pissed, even threatened to fire him and his Carlton Banks outfit wearing ass if he ever interrupted him again. And he sent Stokely on his way. And then he went on to say that he has an interesting past with William Regal, and kind of hinted that he knows something about Regal, and there's something about their past that he will reveal if he has to. And that was his explanation for why him and Regal had that interesting kind of interaction on TV last week. So I don't know what that's referencing. If you guys have any ideas to that, let me know. But that's kind of cool because you don't know what the hell that's going to do and what that's going to reveal. And if it could turn out to be something like a William Regal turn on the Blackpool Club and joining with MJF, I don't know. Who knows what that means, but it means something. And MJF went on to say that, you know, he's got to wake up every day and be the bad guy, and the fans don't like him because he doesn't like himself, and it's just the way he's got to be. And then after that, we are out in the ring for a spectacular Moxley and Hangman Page promo. MJF was up in the suite, and I think maybe my only critique with this segment is that they cut to MJF too many times. I don't think they should have cut to MJF at all. I think they should have let Hangman and Moxley have their promo, both guys say their piece, and at the end of it, when it's over and the crowd is dazzled by what they just heard, you have the hard cam that just kind of slowly pans up. And as one guy walks out of the ring, or both guys leave the ring, or however the segment is concluded, you just have the camera pan up to show and reveal MJF in the suite, instead of cutting to him 5 or 6 times and having the fans chant his name or whatever. If you just had him up there quietly, and then you showed him at the end of it revealing that he's been there listening the whole time, I think that would have been much more effective. But luckily, the promo was so damn good, the MJF cuts didn't ruin it at all. I think it just would have been better if they weren't cutting to him, that's all. But Moxley, like I said, I talked about him earlier with Roman Reigns, just right on top of his game these days, and Hangman had a really intense promo, and he talked about how angry he was that Moxley referred to him as a kid. I'm a 31-year-old man. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm a 31-year-old man, starts punching himself in the head. I'm a former tag team champion. I'm a former world champion. Is that what you think of me? That I'm a kid? And Mox's like, yeah, you're damn right. That's what I think of you. Loved it. When Hangman was getting so intense on the mic and Moxley just was not even intimidated by that at all. I was like, fuck you, man. I just love that. I love that. So I thought Hangman did a great job and Moxley stood his ground, and it really, really made me excited to see this match. And I'm really not of any belief that Hangman Page is going to win the world title on Tuesday. I do not think he's going to beat Jon Moxley for that belt, but it still makes me extremely interested to see that match because I feel like they're going to do some sort of finish that's going to be a development tool in Hangman Page's character, if that makes any sense, because he talked about how all his friends are gone, referring to the Dark Order and the Elite, talked about how he's depressed and angry and his meds aren't working, and, that Moxley is going to be in for the fight of his life next week. So the way he was punching his head and getting all intense, he really seemed like he was riling himself up, and I loved all of it. It's going to be a big-time match by the two guys that got beat by CM Punk for the title are now going to face each other, but Moxley, like I said, as awesome as Hangman was, Moxley stood his ground. He is about as strong and credible and tough as a world champion as you can have right now, and he's doing the exact opposite of Roman Reigns, who's not wrestling at all. Moxley's wrestling every damn night, including last night on Rampage. So that whole promo between the two was great and did a great job of selling me that match on Tuesday. I'm ready to see it. Jericho also, of course, defended the Ring of Honor title against Bryan Danielson. This one you could kind of see coming a mile away. Danielson and Jericho have each had a victory over the other. Would have loved nothing more than for Danielson to beat Jericho for the Ring of Honor title, but there was too much of that Garcia stuff going on. And of course, Jericho attempts to use the belt on Danielson. Garcia runs in the ring, takes the belt away from Jericho, and the minute he grabbed it out of his hands, that's when you knew it was going to happen. Of course, he then runs and smashes Bryan Danielson in the face with the Ring of Honor title, but doesn't pull Jericho on top of him. He just kind of walks away and allows Jericho to get the pin himself, kind of hinting that he might still be a little bit conflicted about that. So not sure where that's going to leave Garcia. I think a lot of fans would have preferred if he joined Blackpool Combat Club, but sticking around with the JAS is something that I also thought was very likely. So I was not shocked, surprised, or anything about that finish. We had Toni Storm and Hikaru Shida, like I said, teamed up to defeat Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter in a tag team match. That was the only segment the women got on Wednesday night. And, of course, Storm and Shida will face this week for the AEW Interim World Championship. So that should be good. And in the main event, what a match between Pac and Orange Cassidy. Loved every bit of this All-Atlantic Championship match. Orange Cassidy, I think in his 8th or 9th try in a title match. He's 0-8, so I think this was his 9th match. And they put on a hell of a match here. This is great. I don't take any stock in that bullshit about Orange Cassidy's a comedy wrestler. No, he's not. If you think the only thing about Orange Cassidy is that there's lots of guys like him. If Orange Cassidy is a comedy wrestler, then so is The Rock with the people's elbow shit. So is Mick Foley with the fucking Sacco shit. There's a lot of guys that do comedy stuff. Orange Cassidy is not just a comedy wrestler. I look at Danhausen more as just a comedy wrestler. Orange Cassidy is a great pro wrestler who has comedy elements in his character, and that's a completely different thing because the dude is an athlete, the dude can go, and he's proved that for the past several years in AEW. The fact that you still have people insisting, no matter what they see and no matter how many great matches this guy has, are still hell-bent on referring him to as a comedy wrestler the same way assholes are hell-bent on calling COVID the China virus. It's the same thing. It's the same stubborn bullshit. They refuse to believe this guy is a good wrestler. Now he's a champion. I have always been a believer in Orange Cassidy. You know why? Because I have eyes. I can watch his matches and say, he's good. He can have matches. There's nothing about his matches that are bad. If you don't like that sometimes he puts his hands in his pockets, that's fine. But to sit there and pretend that he's not a good wrestler just because you don't like hands in the pockets, don't bullshit yourself. Be real. And he's a great wrestler. So happy for him. He's over like fucking Rover. One of the biggest ovations every night on AEW. He's a great character. He's got a great gimmick, a great look. He, to me, embodies exactly what pro wrestling is. Fun, combined with entertainment and athleticism. That's the definition of what pro wrestling is. And that's the type of worker Orange Cassidy is. And I will forever have his back. And Pac is one tough hombre. Pac is a Benoit Dynamite Kid level type of toughness to him. And he was in there, and Pac has no problem putting over Mr. Hands in the Pockets guy. And I thought it was a really, really fun and good match with Orange Cassidy winning and gutting it out. Did you see how he won? I mean, he was weathered. He was getting his fucking ass kicked. There was blood in this match, I think on Pac, whose ear was bleeding. And then finally, it was just Orange Cassidy at the end of it just having to suck it up and belting Pac with 2 good hard orange punches for the finish to win the title in his 68th win. Should be noted that Danhausen did show up disguised at ringside and prevented Pac from using the championship belt as a weapon. And then there was a couple of hammers in there. I think Pac had a hammer. Referee took it from him. Then he had a spare hammer. And then he lost that too. Then Cassidy's got the hammer. And then the referee, I think it was Bryce Remsburg, was like, think about it, Orange Cassidy. You don't want to lose this way. And Cassidy opts not to use the hammer, catches Pac with 2 orange punches instead, and is now the new All-Atlantic champion. Right call there. The only thing I wish, since it was Orange Cassidy's 68th win, I wish they would have just thrown him on dark or something and gave him one more win. That way last night could have been his 69th win. I'm sorry, on Wednesday could have been his 69th win. That would have been the best thing to do, right? But he's the new champ. Congrats to him. First singles title in the company, and long overdue. He should have won some gold way prior to this. I'm happy he's the champ now, and it makes sense because Pac was a double champion because he's 1/2 or 1/3 of the trios champions as well. So putting the belt on Cassidy here, I think was the right call, and a really solid Dynamite main event and a really solid Dynamite overall on Wednesday. Between Wednesday and last night, not a ton to complain about if you're a wrestling fan right now. And of course, this coming Tuesday, we got Mox and Hangman for the AEW title. Death Triangle taking on Orange Cassidy and Best Friends. So Pac will get a chance at revenge there. And we have Chris Jericho defending the Ring of Honor title against Dalton Castle. Hikaru Shida challenging Toni Storm for the interim AEW women's title. And that's all I have written down for Tuesday. There's probably another match or two announced that I'm not aware of. Last night, Rampage, briefly, we had Claudio and Mox in the ring again, beating the Butcher and the Blade. Dalton Castle did come out last night and challenge Chris Jericho because Chris Jericho did say he was going to face, or they said that Chris Jericho was going to be challenged by a former Ring of Honor champion. Turned out to be Dalton Castle. I've always thought he was hilarious. He's great on the mic, and he did a good job in that promo last night as well, and we're going to see that match on Tuesday. Love the stuff that Nyla Rose is doing. She's pretty hilarious, beating Anna Jay last night. She, of course, has stolen the TBS title. So after she wins, Vicky's got the 1-0 sign, and Nyla's clutching the title and crying and all that. And the baddies and Jade run down there, but Nyla's able to escape before she gets her hands on her. All that stuff was good. And in the main event, we did see FTR and Shawn Spears defeating the Embassy in a 6-man match. At the end of it, we saw the appearance and the debut, I should say, of the Kingdom. Some former AEW talent, Maria Kanellis, Mike Bennett, and Matt Taven all come out to the ramp. There has been some talk that WWE had some interest in bringing Matt Taven in. It looks like he's going to be signed with Ring of Honor or AEW now, and says that they are the real top guys and that they've never faced FTR. FTR's never faced them. So if they want to claim to be the greatest world champions and tag team champions, they're going to have to get by them, and they challenged them for the Ring of Honor titles, which the top guys were happy to accept. Then they are attacked from behind by the Embassy, and the Kingdom run down to join in the attack. It's like 5-on-2 here until Wardlow comes out to make the save. So Rampage was a good little show. It appeared to be last night. Out of the hour show, I probably watched about 30 minutes of it. And all in all, it was pretty fun. So like I said, between SmackDown, between Rampage, between Raw and Dynamite this week, they were all good. Raw was solid. Raw had a lot of stuff going on Monday that I really enjoyed. We were up here talking about that. Wednesday's Dynamite was just solid, like most Dynamites are solid. And last night on SmackDown was fun, interesting, enjoyed the Bray Wyatt stuff, enjoyed the Sammy and Bloodline stuff, and enjoyed the Rey Mysterio storyline. So, and then you capped it off with a nice little fun hour-long Rampage last night as well. So in terms of the wrestling we got this week, very little for good mic work to complain about. Well, that is going to be it for me. I had a bottom of the hour cutoff point here because I've got to head off and do life. I got to do that job career thing, make some money, pay the bills for this house, shit like that. So I got to get out of here and go take care of that. But I appreciate you guys being here this afternoon on this wonderful Saturday. Thanks for being here. Again, as you leave, if you don't mind, if you could hit that thumbs up button for me and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, we will be here tomorrow night, about 24 hours from now, 24 and 1/2 hours from now. We go live to watch WCW Halloween Havoc 1996 together. It's going to be a blast. Thanks again for being here, guys. I appreciate everything as always. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and I'll catch you tomorrow night for some wrestling and hanging out. Y'all be good.